Magic Treehouse, book number 16. Hour of the Olympic by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 1. Just one more. You awake? Annie's voice came out of the dark. Yep, said Jack from his bed. Get up, said Annie. We have to get to the treehouse before the sunrise. I'm ready, said Jack. He threw back his covers and jumped out of bed. He was wearing his jeans and t-shirt. You slept in your clothes? Asked Annie. I didn't want to waste any time, said Jack. He pulled on his backpack. Annie laughed. You must be really excited about going to ancient Greece, she said. Yep, said Jack. Do you have your secret library card? Asked Annie. Yeah, you do, said Jack. Sure, put it in your backpack, she said. She handed her card to him. I'll carry the flashlight. All set, said Jack. They tiptoed downstairs and out the door. Outside, the air was fresh and cold. There's no moon, said Annie, just stars. She turned on her flashlight. Ta-da, she said. Let's go. They followed the beam of light across the yard and up the street. Jack was thrilled to be going to an ancient Greece, but something worried him. What do you think will happen after we go to Greece? He asked Annie. It is our last mission ever? Oh, I hope not, said Annie. What do you think? I don't know. Let's ask Morgan, said Jack. Hurry, said Annie. They started running. The flashlight beamed through the front of them, lighting the way. They slowed to the walk. Then, when they got to the Frog Creek woods, the thick woods were pitch black. Annie shined the flashlight upward as they walked between the trees. Finally, they found the magic treehouse. We're here, he called. Go on up, said Jack. Annie grabbed the rope ladder and started up. Jack followed. Annie shined the flashlight around the treehouse. Morgan Le Fay was sitting at the window. She covered her eyes when the light hit her face. Turn off the light, please, Annie, she said softly. Annie turned it off. Welcome, Morgan said in the dark. Are you ready for your next mission? Yes, said Annie. Then her voice got quiet. This isn't our last one ever, isn't it? Ask me that question after this mission, said Morgan. You want to go on more, said Jack. You're very brave to say that, said Morgan. You have 3 very hard journeys as Master Librarian. Oh, they weren't so hard, said Jack. You risked your life to save the last story of Hercules, said Morgan. It was nothing, said Annie. And the Chinese story of the silk weavers, said Morgan. And the Irish story of the serpent monster surface. Thank you. You're welcome, said Jack and Annie. Now, said Morgan, for the last story. Jack heard a rustling sound. Here is the title, Morgan said. You can shine your light on it, Annie. Annie turned the flashlight back down. She shined it on the paper. Wow, is that Greek? Asked Jack. It certainly is, said Morgan. He reached into her robe again and pulled out her book. For your research, she said. Jack took out the book from her. Annie shined her flashlight on the cover. They read the title, A Day in the Ancient Greece. Now what must you always remember, said Morgan. Our research book will guide us, said Jack. But in our darkest hour, only the last story can save us, said Annie. Morgan nodded. And you must show your secret library card to the wisest person you met, she said. Don't worry, we will. Bye, said Annie. Jack shivered with excitement as he pointed at the book covers. I wish we could go there, he says. And I wish we could go on lots of other missions, Annie added. The wind began to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. Any girls' ears? Jack opened his eyes. Warm sunshine streamed into the treehouse. We sure didn't need a flashlight here, he said. Look, Morgan gave us clothes like the ones we were in Pompeii, said Annie. Jack looked down. His clothes were similar to the ones he had worn in the Roman town of Pompeii, a tunic and sandals. Also, he had the leather bag in place of his backpack again. Annie looked out the window. And we landed in an olive tree, just like Pompeii, said Annie. Jack looked out the window. He caught his breath. Are we in the wrong place? He asked. I don't know, said Annie. Just past the trees. Doesn't it look like a big fair? Jack looked. Annie was right. Past the olive grove was a field filled with white tents. Beyond the field were red brick buildings with a common and huge crowd of people. What's going on? Jack asked. He pulled the research book out of his leather bag. He found a picture of the tent outside. Below the picture were these words. The Olympic Games began in ancient Greece over 2,500 years ago. Every 4 years, more than 4 million people travel to Olympia, the towns where the festival of the Art Games took place. Oh man, he whispered, we're at the ancient Olympic. Cool, said Annie. Jack wrote in his notebook. Olympia, first Olympic take place. Come on, let's go watch, Annie says. She started down the rope ladder. Jack threw his notebook and the research book into his leather bag. Don't forget we have to get Morgan's story too, he said as he followed Annie. Annie waited as Jack stepped to the ground. Then they walked through the olive grove to where the tents were. Jack heard the pipe music and smelled food roasting over fires. Group of men talked excitedly to one another. That's funny, said Annie. I don't see any girls here. Oh, sure, there's girls, said Jack. Where? Said Annie. Show me. Jack looked around, but he only saw man and boy, no woman or girl at all. Then he saw an outdoor theater. The woman was standing on the stage. She has a yellow hair and a purple tunic. There, said Jack, pointing. What's she doing? Asked Annie. The soldier was on the stage with her. He wore a long cape. The helmet with a red shirt hid his face. The woman and the soldiers were waving their arms and talking loudly to each other. I think they're doing a play, said Jack. I'll look. He pulled out the Greek book and found a picture of the theater. Listen, he says. He read aloud. The Greek were the first to write play. Many English words for the theater came from Greek words, such as drama, century, and chorus. Many Greek plays are still performed today. Hey, Jack, said Annie, you're wrong. When Jack looked up, he saw the woman had pulled off her wig. It was the boy dressed up as a woman. See, even she's a boy, said Annie. That's weird. Said Jack. He went on reading. A few actors would play many different parts in the same play. Woman was not allowed to act, so man played the formal role too. That's not fair, said Annie. What if the woman wanted to play in the play? Don't worry about it, said Jack. He put the book away. Let's just take a peek at the Olympic, then found her story. He nudged Annie to move along. Just then he heard a voice. Wait, They turned around. The man with the short white beard was walking toward them. "Hello," said the man. He was looking right at Annie. "Who are you?" "Who are you?" Annie asked boldly. Chapter 3. The Secret Post. The bearded man smiled at Annie. "My name is Plato," he says. "Plato?" said Jack. That name sounded familiar. "You may have heard me," said the man says. "I'm the Polycisters." "What's that mean?" said Annie. "A lover of wisdom," said the Plato. "Wow," said Annie. Plato smiled at her. "It's odd to see girls walking so bravely through the Olympia," he says. "You must be from far away." "We're Jack and Annie," said Annie, "and we came from Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. It's very far away." Plato looked puzzled. Annie turned to Jack. "I think we should show him our card," she said in a low voice. "He's a lover of the wisdom." Jack nodded. He reached into his bag and took out the secret library card. He showed them to the Plato. The letter M and L that stood for Master Librarians glittered on the card. "Amazing," said Plato. "I never met such young Master Librarians. Why have you come to Olympia?" Jack pulled out the piece of paper with the title of the story. "We're looking for this story," he says. "Oh, yes," said Plato softly. "This was written by the brilliant poet, a friend of mine, in fact." "Do you know where the poet lives?" asked Jack. "Very near here," said Plato. "Will you take us there?" asked Annie. Yes, but I must warn you. Never tell anyone who the poet is," said Plato. "It's a secret." "We won't," whispered Annie. Plato led the far away from the outdoor theater. They started down the dirt road. It was crowded with people heading to the game. Plato stopped at the door of the sand-colored house with a brick roof. He opened the door and led Jack and Danny into the empty courtyard. "Wait here," he says. He disappeared through the doorway. Jack and Danny looked around. Rooms opened onto the many courtyard. Everything was quiet. "The people who live here must have gone to the game," said Annie. "Right. I bet you're right," said Jack. He pulled out the Greek book and found a picture of the house. He read aloud. "Man and woman live in the surface part of Greek house. Women spend most of their time spinning and weaving, taking care of the kitchen. Boys were sent away to school when they were 7. Girls were not even allowed to go to school." "Girls can't go to school," said Annie. "How do they learn to read and write?" At the moment Plato returned. With him was a young woman dressed in the long tunic with a collar border. She was holding the scrolls. Annie smiled a big smile. "Finally," she said, "another girl." Jack and Danny made a secret post, said Plato. Chapter 4. Not Fair. The young woman smiled at Jack and Danny. "How did you learn to read and write?" Annie asked. "I taught myself," said the woman answered. "She wrote a poem and brought it to me," said Plato, "because I have written and told people that I think Greek people should go to school and learn things." "Is that the poems?" said Jack. He pointed to the poems scrolls. "Yes," said the young woman. It's a very wonderful story," said Plato, "but she will get in trouble if it is read on our island. You must take it back to your faraway home, where it will be safe." The poet had Jack her scroll. He put in his bag. "Tell us your name," said Annie, "so you can tell people who write the story." The young woman shook her head. "I cannot," she said. Then she saw Annie sent me. She added, "You can tell people it was written by Anonymous." "That's your name?" asked Annie. "No. Anonymous means that no one knows who wrote it." said Plato. But that's not true, said Annie. I'm afraid the risk is too great, said Plato. Annie looked back at the woman. I'm sorry, said Annie. It's not fair. Not at all. The poet smiled at her. I am happy that you will take my story to your country, she says. Perhaps some days women everywhere will write books just like men. They will, said Jack. I promise. The young woman looked at him, puzzled. It's true, said Annie. Thank you, Annie, the young woman says. And thank you, Jack. She bowed, then hurried out the courtyard. Wait, said Annie. She started to go after the poet, but the Plato stopped her. Come along, he said. The games will start soon. Plato then led Jack and Danny out of the greenhouse back to the dark road. Girls can't write stories, grumbled Danny. They can't go to school. They can't be in play. I have enough of ancient Greece. Let's get out of here. Wait, said Jack. What about the Olympics? Oh, yeah, said Annie. Her eyes got brighter. I almost forgot. Well, said Plato slowly, I would like to take you both to the game. I have a special seat in the viewing box. However, he looked at Annie. Don't tell me, she said. Girls can't go to the Olympic either. Plato shook his head. And girls will get in trouble, terrible troubles if she goes to the games, he said. Annie sighed. It's really not fair, she says. I'm sorry, said Plato. My country is the democracy. We believe in freedom of our citizens. But I'm afraid right now that's only meant. Annie's right, it's not fair, said Jack. I think we should go home now. No, Jack, you go to the Olympics, said Annie. At least you can tell me about it. Take notes. What about you? Jack says. I'll go to that play and the outdoor theater, she said. Meet me then where you're done. Jack didn't want to leave Annie alone, but he also didn't want to miss the Olympics. Go have fun, Annie says. She began walking away. I'll see you later. Bye, Plato. Bye, Annie, said Plato. Annie turned back again and waved. I'll tell you all about it, Jack called. This way, said Plato. He and Jack turned and joined the crowd heading toward the Olympic ground. Chapter 5. Hi, Zeus. This is the very first day of games, Plato told Jack. The day of the current race. Oh, wow, whispered Jack. He couldn't believe he was going to see the tourist race. The modern Olympic game didn't have the tourist race. They walked toward the rock track. Plato pointed to the large building near the road. That is the gymnasium, he said. This is where an athlete trains. They practice training, throwing the javelin and discus. They have the gymnasiums at our schools in Frog Creek, said Jack. We call it gym. Peoples all over the world copied us Greek, Plato says. Wait, said Jack. I have to take note for Annie. He pulled out his notebook and wrote, Ancient Greek invented gyms. Okay, we can go, said Jack. He tucked his notebook under his arms. As they moved along, Plato pointed to the beautiful trees nearby. The olive tree is our scare trees, he says. The winner of the games will wear a crown made from its branch. Oh, wow, said Jack, and he wrote, Olive tree is scared. Next, they passed the beautiful statue of the winged lady. Who's that? Said Jack. She's Nick, the goddess of victory, said Plato. Jack quickly wrote, Nick is goddess of victory. Nick is important to the game, said Plato, but the most important Olympic god is in there. He took Jack to the brick building with huge columns. They stepped through the doors. It was the temple. Jack gasped. In front of them loomed the biggest statue he had ever seen. The statue was at least 2 stories high. It was the bird man sitting on throne. This is the temple of Zeus. That is the statue of Zeus himself, said Plato. The Olympic Games are played in his honors. He is the chief god of Greek gods and goddesses. Oh man, he whispered. Yesterday all the athletes came here, said Plato. They were the Zeuses that has trained for 10 months. And they promised to obey the rule for games. The statue of the mighty Greek god stared down at Jack. Jack felt very small. Hi, Zeus, he said. His voice was very small, too. Suddenly, a trumpet sound came from outside. The hour has come, said Plato. We must hurry. The Olympic parade began. Outside. The hour has come, said Plato. We must hurry. The Olympic parade began. Outside. The hour has come, said Plato. We must hurry. The Olympic parade began. Outside. Chapter 6. Mystery Man. Plato and Jack hurried past the crowd standing at the side of the racetrack. Everyone was shouting and cheering. I have seat next to Judge, said Plato. He pointed to the tall stand with a row of bench. Plato led Jack through the crowd and up the step with their seats. Wow, thanks, said Jack. He had a great view. The Olympic parade had already started. Magicians playing pipe were at the front. Behind them marched the Olympic athlete, the best in all of Greece. Jack sighed as he watched the parade going around the track. Annie would really love this, he thought. The athlete in front are the runners, said Plato. Foot races are the oldest event of Olympic. Jack pulled out his notebook and wrote, oldest event is foot race. Behind the runners are the boxers, said Plato. They are wearing special gloves and bronze helmets. Jack wrote, boxers wear gloves and helmet. Behind them are the wrestlers, said Plato, and Jack wrote wrestler. When Jack looked up again, he saw the soldier staring up at him from the sideline. The soldier was dressed like an actor from the outdoor theater. He had on the long cape and the red crest helmets that covered most of his face. But something was strange. This soldier was George, really George. Hey, come the discus and javelin throwers, said Plato. And then the man is in armor. What do they do? Asked Jack. They race wearing full armor, said Plato. Jack smiled to himself. He knew Annie would think that was funny. He wrote in his notebook, some runners race in armor. Jack finished writing. He looked back at the soldier. In that moment, the cart race will begin, said Plato. Winning the cart race is the greatest honor of the game. Jack just nodded. He was still studying the short soldier, who seems to be looking back at him. Suddenly, a small hand came out of the soldier's cape. The hands gave a little wave. Jack gasped. It was Annie, hands waving. The soldier was Annie. Chapter 7. Go, go, go. Jack stared in honor at Annie. She must have borrowed the costume from the theater. He remembered Plato word. The girl will be getting trouble if she tried to attend the Olympic game. Jack shook his hand at her and pointed his fingers as if to say, get out of here. But Annie just waved at him again. Jack kept shaking his hands at Annie. She even shook his fist. Annie turned back to watch the race. It's not a joke, Jack shouted. Plato turned and looked at him. Of course not, said Plato. We take the game very seriously. Jack felt his face got hot. He glared at Annie's back. Just then the trumpet sounded. "The courage are taking their place," said Plato. Jack saw the dozens of carts lined up on the racetrack. Each cart was pulled by 4 horses. Jack glanced back at Annie. She was looking up at him, pointing at the carts. The trumpet sounded again. The horses took off. The crowd went wild. They were cheering and screaming and stamping their feet. A cloud of dust rose as the chariot raced around the track. Annie turned back to watch the race. She began jumping up and down. "Go, go, go!" she shouted. A few people began staring at the strange small soldier with a high-pitched voice. Jack couldn't take it anymore. He had to get Annie away before it was too late. He shoved his notebook into his bag. "I have to go," he shouted to Planta. The postmaster looked surprised. Jack was afraid to tell him that Annie had broken the rules. "I have a great game, but I have to go home now," said Jack. "Thanks for everything." "Have a safe journey," said Plato. Jack waved and started down the step. As he climbed down, he saw Annie pulled off her helmet. Her pigtails flew up and down as she jumped and shouted, "Go, go, go!" Her shoulder cap fell off. Now lots of people were staring at her. Someone shouting for the guard. Annie was too busy cheering to notice anything. Jack moved as quickly as he could, but 2 big guards got to Annie first. Chapter 8. Save Annie. The guard tried to pull Annie away from the chariot race. Annie looked surprised, then he looked angry. "Let go of me," said she shouted. Jack rushed down the step of the viewing stand. The guards were having a hard time pulling Annie through all the people. "Leave her alone," Jack yelled. His voice was lost in the noise of a race. He pushed his way through the crowd. "Leave her alone," he kept shouting. "Leave her alone." Finally, Jack reached Annie and the guard. He tried to grab her, but the guard blocked his way. "Let her go," yelled Jack. "I promise I'll take home." More guards arrived. The crowd began to shout, "Arrest her! Arrest her!" The guard kept pulling Annie away. "Jack, a story!" cried Annie. "Of course," thought Jack. "The post story. This is definitely our darkest hour." He looked into his bag and pulled out the postcards. He handed the story up to the sky. "Save Annie," he shouted. But Jack's voice was again lost in the roll of the race as the 4 horse crowd barreled through the dust. Jack looked around wildly for someone or something to help them. Then suddenly the crowd fell silent. All hands turned to watch as the huge white horse galloped out of the dust. The crowds murmured with the excitement of wonder. The white horse was the most beautiful animal Jack had ever seen. He was pulling an empty chariot, and he was galloping straight toward Jack. Chapter 9. Fly Away Home. The white horse stopped at the low well by the edge of the track. "He's come for us," cried Annie. The guards stared in awe at the horse. Annie broke free and dashed over to Jack. He grabbed her hands and ran to the horse. The guards shouted and started after them, but they were too late. Jack and Annie had already climbed over the wall into the waiting carriage. "Go, go, go!" Annie shouted to the huge white horse. The horse rolled and pawed in the air. The crowd stepped back from the wall. The guard froze. Jack looked up to where Plato was now standing. Plato smiled and waved at him. Then the white horse leaped forward, pulling the chariot behind him. Jack couldn't even wave back at Plato. All he could do was holding on tight as the horse galloped beside the old Olympic racer. Jack bounced up and down. Dust and sand got in his eyes. He squeezed them shut and crouched down in the carriage. He didn't know where they were going, but it didn't matter. The white horse was in the charge. Jack heard the thundering noise of the racing horses and chariots. He heard a screaming crowd. He felt sand blowing in his eyes and the hard bumping and rattling of the chariot. Suddenly he was thrown backward. He heard the swoosh of wind, then silence. "Oh, wow!" cried Annie. Jack opened his eyes. All he saw was blue sky. He pushed his glasses into place and looked around. "Help!" he cried. The white horse had grown giant friendly wings and was pulling her chariot into the sky. Jack ripped the railing off the chariot and held on for his life. "To the treehouse!" Annie shouted. Below, the Olympic crowd watched in stunned silence. The winged horse left the game behind and flew over the temple of Zeus, over the statue of Nick, over the sheltered olive tree and gymnasium. On they went, over the poetry, the girls' theater, and the field of white hands. Finally, the winged horse coasted to the ground near the olive grove. The wall of the church bumped into the grass. Then slowly, they came to a stop. Jack and Danny stepped out of the church. Jack's legs were so wobbly he could hardly walk. Annie rushed to the horse and stroked his neck. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack patted the horse's long white neck too. "Thanks," he said. "That was the best ride of my life." The horse snorted and pawed the ground. "Come on, Annie. We have to go before they found us," said Jack. "I don't want to leave him," said Annie. "He's the most beautiful horse in the whole world." Her eyes filled with tears. "We have to," said Jack. The horse put his head down and touched Annie's forehead. Off was his soft nose. Then he gave her a gentle push toward the treehouse. Annie sniffled, but started walking. Jack took her hands as they walked through the olive grove to the rope ladder of the treehouse. "You go first," Jack said. Annie started up the ladder. Jack followed. When they were inside, Annie hurried the window. Jack grabbed a Pennsylvania book. He pointed to the picture of the Frog Creek woods and said, "I wish—" "Look," said Annie. Jack looked out the window. The horse had spread his great, fiery wings. He was riding from the field. The white horses flew high into the blue Olympian sky. Then he disappeared behind the crowd. "Bye," called Annie. The tear rolled down her cheek. Jack pointed again at the Pennsylvania book. "I wish we could go there," he says. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 10. They're all here. Jack opened his eyes. It was so dark he couldn't see anything. He felt his clothes. He was wearing his t-shirt and jeans again. The leather bag has turned back into the backpack. "Hello," said Morgan Lafay. Her voice came from the corner of the treehouse. "Hi," said Annie. "Did you have a good journey?" asked Morgan. "I did," said Jack. "But girls can't do anything fun in ancient Greece." "I did one fun thing," Annie said wistfully. "I rode in the chariot pulled by the flying horse. That must have been wonderful," said Morgan. "You're very lucky to be bringing me the story of Pegasus." "Who?" said Jack. "Pegasus," said Morgan. "He's the great white winged horse in Greek mythology." "Oh, yeah," said Jack. I think I heard of him. He felt in his backpack and found the scrolls. He gave it to Morgans. He could still barely see her in the dark. It was written by Anonymous, said Annie. I know, said Morgan's. Many talented women used that name in the past. Her story will be a great addition into my Camelot library. But they'll help us find it, said Jack. My good friend Plato, said Morans. He's the one of the greatest thinkers who ever lived. And the Pegasus was the greatest horse, said Annie. She sighed. I just wish I could see him again. You can, Morgan said softly. He's here right now. Pegasus? Cried Annie. Oh boy! Annie turned on the flashlight and used it to find her way down the rope ladder. Jack grabbed his backpack and followed her. When they were both standing on the ground, Annie slants her flashlight at the darkness. Pegasus? Dark trees. Pegasus? She said. Where are you? Pegasus? Turn off your flashlight, Annie, said Morgan. She was looking down from the treehouse window. Annie switched off the light. In the night, you can see all the stories, characters that saved you on the last 4 missions, said Morgan. They are all here. Harkles and Silk Weavers, Zephyrs and Secret Monsters, and Pegasus. Jack pushed his glasses into place and started the dark woods. Where are they, Morgan? Cried Annie. Where's Pegasus? Look hard, said Morgan. I can't see him, said Annie. Yes, you can, said Morgan. The old stories are always with us. We're never alone. Has Morgan gone crazy? Wonders Jack. Look down, said Morgan. Your friends are in the night sky. There are stars. Stars? Whispered Jack. He stared at the shimmering field of tiny stars overhead. Articles in the constellation, said Morgan. The Roman imagined him kneeling in the sky, holding the cloud over his hands. Morgan waved her finger at the sky. For a moment, Jack saw the living, breathing articles outlined by stars. And there are Silk Weavers and her beloved coward, said Morgan. The ancient Chinese belongs that were 2 stars on each other side of the Milky Way. Morgan gave her hands again. The lovely Silk Weaver was outlined in the heavens. And long ago the Irish believed the Milky Way itself was a servant master suffrage, said Morgan. Morgan waved her hands. The giant servant glared through the sky, and the ancient Greek name of the Zeppelin Pegasus, said Morgan. She waved her hands again, and the white horse had wings and galloping legs glowed in the sky. I see him, said Annie. Then she whispered, I love you, Pegasus. Jack thought he saw the star move as if Pegasus were rolling back into the sky. After a breathing moment of the silence, Morgan lowered her arms. The night sky became a field of tiny glowing stars again. You have done amazing work as Master Librarian, said Morgan. I will trust you with any important missions. Does that mean we're going on more trips? Asked Jack. Indeed it does, said Morgan. Many more. Jack smiled with relief. What is our next mission? Said Annie. As soon as I need your help, I will stand for you, said Morgan. Go home now and rest. Goodbye, said Annie. Goodbye, said Jack. Farewell, said Morgan. There was a sudden rush of the wind, then the blur of blinding light, and Mugula Faye and the magic tree house vanished. The night was still. Home? Asked Annie. Sure, said Jack. As they walked between the trees, the Frog Creek woods were pitch black. Jack couldn't see a thing, but he didn't ask Annie to turn on the flashlight. For once, he wasn't worried about finding his way home. He felt as if someone or something was letting them through the woods. Warmer words came back to him. The old stories are always with us. We're never alone. Jack looked up at the star again. They were being the fade in the glowing light of dawn. But he thought he could hear the beating of giant wings somewhere high above.